Well, the big clothing retailers begin reporting earnings today, with Macy's beating estimates and also raising their 2010 forecast. Nordstrom, a higher-end retailer, will follow with its own report tomorrow. JCPenney next up on Friday. So what's happening in the retail environment right now? Give us some visibility into the consumer. For that, Tom Chin, Telsey Advisory Group's head of analytics, joins us. Tom, Macy's today, they're out there not only beating in terms of earnings, they're also raising on the top line. They're making a bet that consumers are going to spend. This seems a very different narrative from what I'm hearing on the economic front with a global slowdown. Is this just a single bright spot?
Yeah, Margaret, I'd say that it's very kind of specific to the companies. I think overall the consumer is still very pressured, again, by a lot of the headwinds that we're seeing, whether it's unemployment or the fact that tax reform is coming. All those things I think are still headwinds. But I do think that some sectors, if you look at department stores specifically, if you're able to offer specific products and products that consumers want, i.e. maybe it's the Madonna line or others like that, that may draw consumers into to those stores.
But newness and the idea that consumers will buy on a whim gives me the idea that discretionary spending is there. Is this just for a certain segment of the consumer marketplace? I mean, is this, what income level are we looking at that's spending right now?
I think right now there's a little bit of a bifurcation. In terms of kind of that higher end, we're definitely seeing better results there. So if you talk about the companies like the Saks of the world, the higher luxury kind of consumers, again, the ability to spend was always there. It was just a lack of willingness to. And so it's coming back in terms of that segment. I think on the very low end, if you look at some of the dollar stores and that type of deep discounting, that still seems to be working because, again, that's the lowest of lowest price points. And so that seems to be also resonating with consumers, kind of given that we're still in an economic, very slow, molasses-like recovery kind of phase. And so I think the middle of the pack is really where it's being hurt in terms of that aspirational customer.
The aspirational customer not necessarily as active. But what's the trigger that gets consumers spending? I mean, we've got mortgage rates extremely low, yet we've got consumer confidence also falling right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's going to happen, and if you take a step back at looking at kind of earlier this year, I think we did see a pickup in terms of releasing of pent-up demand. And clearly there were people out there shopping, the stock markets were a little bit better, and so I think people had that feel-good factor and they were able to replenish their wardrobe, update their electronics and those type of things. I think moving forward into kind of the back half of this year into next year, it's really about, are those marketing campaigns where the retailers are opening up the wallets a little bit more, are they going to be working? Is there going to be a must-have item, i.e. an iPad or something of that nature that will really drive consumer traffic and conversion?
International Council of Shopping Centers says back-to-school sales are going to be up 5%, best since 2005. Is that a fair estimate?
I think it's probably fair. I think a lot of what's happening now is that the back-to-school shopping has been pushed back more and more. Again, historically had been really because of promotional activity. I think this year now we're going to see more of that back-to-school shopping, the concentration of it probably in kind of this week and the next couple of weeks in terms of the back end of August. And so we'll be out in the stores watching what happens there. But again, clearly the consumer still feels like they're looking for promotional activity, they're looking for bargains and not necessarily full price selling.
All right. Tom Chin joining us this morning from Telsey Advisory Group.